Hello YouTube, welcome back to another Tim Cain reaction, this time on Passivity. And if it is what I think it is about, I have a lot to talk about with passive workers that I've worked with before.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Tim.
Hi Tim!
Today I want to talk about passivity.
This microphone's
What I
picking
mean
up a
by
bit.
that is people who work with zero passion about it. They just go with the flow. They don't care very much about one way or the other.
Oh
They
yeah.
don't care about a particular feature or game element. Of course, I'm talking about this in the game industry, but bear with me. I have examples of passivity from everything.
I've worked with people like this.
In many ways, this is going to be the opposite of me talking about passion. Although I don't really have a passion video, it comes out a lot, me talking about passion, in the work life balance video I made, and I'll link that below. Usually I'm told I'm passionate. I usually don't tell people I'm passionate. The same thing works with
Same.
passivity. People don't go, yeah, I'm really passive. They just act that way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. give us one reason why we should hire you. Oh, I'm really passive. Yeah. So you want me as your lead designer, right? Very passive?
and I just want to start off by saying I'm perfectly okay with people being passive. These are often the jobs people. If you watch my video on jobs, careers, and callings, which I'll link below, you'll see that passive people, I view them as completely necessary to the process. You want a mix of people on your team, and the jobs people are great because they come in, they do their work, they leave. They are the ones that don't tend to go, I want to question the very direction this game is going, which is okay to a point, but eventually you have to go in a direction, which is why you have a game director. And I was very
Let me. Okay, Tim has more experience than me, right? He's got a lot more experience than me. I kind of disagree on this point, though. I'll say this. I think there's two things at work here. There's people who are passive and or non-confront. I don't know. There's a lot of things to unpack here. I think that people who question the game's direction at every turn are usually one of two types of people. There's non-confrontational people, right? And those are people who are passive. Even if they disagree with the direction that the game is taking, they won't voice it. Then there are people who are confrontational and might disagree with the direction that the game is taking. And there's a third one too, actually. The third one is people who don't understand the direction that the game is taking and want to. And I think that these are all totally different potential problems in your company, right? You don't want a game director who is passive, obviously. So I think that people in certain positions that have this passivity are not good. Like people who are just, let's roll with the, go with the flow. Sure, yes, men, publisher wants it, let's do it, never question it. That's not good. There are people then who confront you about the game's direction because they disagree with the game's direction. Sometimes that can be good if it's channeled well, but there are people who just literally hate that you are taking the game in the direction that you're taking it in and are trying to fight that. That's a bad teammate. You don't want somebody like that. And you need to tell them, look, this is the way that the game is going. We appreciate, criticism and feedback, but there is a point where that becomes enough is enough. That's separate. And people who don't understand where the game is going but want to, I think, are then symptoms of the actual problem being that maybe you don't have enough documentation. Maybe you have a designer or director that is flip-flopping or saying maybe all the time instead of yes, no, yes, no. This is that is the core of the problem, and the people who are questioning the game's direction are not the problem in that case. They are red flags saying, hey, maybe, we need to figure out what we're actually making here. So I think that there's a lot of nuance to this, and I'm not sure if Tim is specifically speaking about people who come in and just do their jobs, which if he is, which is what it sounds like he is, I don't know. I don't think that you need to have those people in the workplace, and I don't think people who are passionate are guaranteed to question you in a negative way, I think that they could say, oh, this system could be more deep by doing X, Y, Z. And when you say, I agree with you, but we don't have enough time, they're like, okay. And that's somebody who's still passionate, but they accept the realities of the situation. So I'm not so sure this is a black and white situation. And I don't know if Tim is purposely painting it like that. He might just be trying to make it simple to understand for a 11-minute video, right? People do this just for money, so they don't care about the actual game that much. I agree, and there are people like that. I disagree with the idea that they're necessary. I don't mind working with them, but I definitely prefer working with people who care about what they're doing and want to make a good game. It's just that it has to be channeled correctly. You can't have them questioning every single decision, and even in some cases refusing to work or actively working against that vision. Probably more prevalent in AAA studios. Yeah, there's a lot of that, yeah.
Very lucky in Fallout. Fallout was interesting because it had a ton of passionate people, and we all agreed on the same direction.
That is rare.
So I'm fine with people being passive. The problem I have is passive people often want to make the problems their passivity causes into other people's problems. And I want to talk about that because I've seen this in the game industry, but I've also seen this in life. I saw this in school. I see it on this channel. And I just want to make it clear, if you want to be one of these passive people, knock yourself out. Just accept, though, where your passivity is causing issues for yourself, and don't make them other people's problems. Let me walk through a bunch of examples of what I'm talking about. Let me give you a couple examples from life. So the first one I'm going to talk about is I had a big move I had to do when I was in my 20s, where I was moving from an apartment into my first house. I guess I was 29.
Lucky. Lucky.
I asked some friends for help because I had some furniture that I couldn't handle myself, but I tried to do everything else myself. I especially took all like the dishes and glassware and my computer stuff and files and like personal papers, banking stuff. I moved all that to the house myself. I boxed it up, put it in my car, took it to the house, unboxed it into places like cabinets or put them in a closet so they wouldn't be in the way. And then on moving day, it was, here's a bunch of box stuff that's I couldn't handle, and here's some furniture that needs at least two people to like a bed and a mattress or a couch. Mm-hmm. And I had a truck. A few months later, another friend of mine moved and invited his friends, including me, to help. We arrived. He was still packing. He didn't have enough boxes. In fact, he and someone else had to run out and buy more boxes because he had more stuff than he had boxes for. My move took about 2.5 hours. I remember we started around 10. I had everybody eating pizza at 12:30. Everybody had the afternoon to themselves.
That's me. See, I'm like Tim. If I ask somebody to help me move, I will literally have everything packed and ready, and they'll open the door and be like, okay, here's the stuff. Here's this. Let's go. God, I know people, and I feel like my mom is one of those people that, hey, help me move. And you arrive there, and she's like, I don't know, still getting ready for the morning or something, and nothing is packed up. And you're like, she's like, oh, just quickly help me pack. It'll be faster if there's two of us. It's like, woman, it would have been faster had you done it the night before. I'm one of the people that if I go on vacation, I pack everything that I need the night before. So I get up, I take a shower, I grab my stuff, and I go. Stop lying. Just ask. And the funny thing is, my mother-in-law, she's the exact same way as my mom too. God, I don't know if it must be a mom thing.
Everybody had the afternoon to themselves. My friend, 8 hours later, it was 6 o'clock at night. We were still working on moving him.
Yep.
Nobody had anything to eat. We were super grumpy and grouchy. And he turned it around on us and said, I helped you all move. And when people pointed out that he didn't do anything to prepare for it, he got really upset and said, you guys are just bagging on me. I can't believe you're not helping me. You're not really my friends.
Oh, boy. Yep.
Another example is I love playing tabletop RPGs. I'm often the DM, GM, whatever they call it.
I would love to have Tim DM for me. That'd be so cool.
I like telling stories. I can be pretty impartial on the rules. So a lot of things that when other people tried being a DM, it didn't work out as well. But what was weird was some players wanted to play the game but would put zero effort in. They didn't seem to realize when the DM sits down at the table, that person has put in a ton of work already. I've had players show up who didn't have the player's handbook for the game we were playing, or even bothered downloading a free PDF onto their phone so they could at least understand, like, here's what character creation is going to be like.
Oh boy.
They didn't have dice. They didn't even bring paper and pencil. They wanted all of that provided to them. And when other people got upset with them, sometimes me, but often other players, they were like, I don't understand. I'm just playing here. Why are you getting so mad at me? Their passivity became everyone else's problem. And then they were shocked when they weren't invited back. And they thought people were being mean to them.
Yeah, and to tie this back into game dev, which he's going to do here, and I'm kind of stepping on his toes here. Sorry, Tim. Yeah, it's if you have that passivity, it does get transferred onto other people. And I think there's two things here. I think Tim is talking about there's like two types of passivity that he's meaning. There's passivity with the people that come in, do their work well, and then leave. And there are some people that I've worked with in the industry who are so good at this, especially like some coders, some programmers who are like really good at fixing bugs. They come in, fix bug, gone, and then go home. That's it. And they don't really have they don't give a shit about the game. They don't care about the game's design. They don't really want to talk about the game. They come and they do their work well, and then they leave. And that's fine. But there are people who are passive to the point of, okay, we need you to make a decision. Oh, well, maybe we could do it. No, we actually just need something chosen here. Oh, well, we could do this, My brother in Christ, make a decision, please. And that's when it gets transferred on. It wastes other people's times. And then somebody else has to step in that it isn't their responsibility, or maybe they don't have enough time. It's horrible. It's horrible for the team. That's not okay.
I have a meeting, a video on this channel
out,
about something that happened to me in school. It's called Crunch Part 2, which is a bad name for it. Really what it's about is a project class that I took as an undergraduate, my last year as an undergraduate.
We watched that. You can check
in
it out
software engineering, where there was one project assigned to you the first week, and that was your entire grade. And the professor said, get started on this now, don't wait. Summarize the video. Most of the class waited. Most of the class didn't finish. Most of the class failed. And all of them complained that it was unfair, that there wasn't enough time, that the project was too hard, that their other classes got in the way, all these things. And then they found out they were a couple students, and I was one of them, that did it. And what was frustrating about that class and how it got resolved, although I think they were allowed to retake, was the professor was frustrated too because he told everybody to get started and almost everybody ignored him, figuring they could just knock it out in a couple weeks. It was a 15-week semester, and it took me 13 of the 15 weeks to do it. So I finished up before the end of the project, but I started the first week.
He gave the warning.
All of these students made it not their problem. And they can't claim they weren't warned. They can't claim they didn't know the project was 100% of their grade. They can't claim the professor didn't tell them. They just didn't do it.
People are lazy on average. I think people are lazy on average, but also people just, and everybody's guilty of this. I'm guilty of it. Everybody in chat, we're all guilty of it sometimes. Some people more than others. Some, depends on the mood, whatever. We're all guilty of placing blame on other people when we know deep down that it was our problem to begin with. We all do that. I'm guilty 100%. I ain't guilty at all. You guys are yin and yang right here. Perfectly balanced. No, we all do it at times, but I think it's part of like ego and vulnerability, right? I think we can all feel vulnerable, and I think whenever we feel vulnerable, we're more likely to try to push off that blame on other people, or at least not accept the blame ourselves. But then I think when people have large egos, they will never accept blame at all. And I'm more willing to forgive or just forget and overlook people who, during a vulnerable point, do something that is out of character. Honestly, if somebody, has a bad day at work and then says some shit or does some shit that is out of character, I literally do not care by the next day. I don't give a fuck because I've been there myself. But then it's when you know that somebody's just egotistical and they don't want to ever take any responsibility. No. No. Insight. It's great that having responsibility or not having responsibility. Yeah, I'm sure it is great not having responsibility.
I've seen this in the industry at all levels.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with coworkers who used weaponized ignorance, is what I call it, to get out of doing tasks. In other words, they got assigned something they didn't like doing. So they pretended that they weren't good at it, or they didn't know how to do it. Or when they took a long time, they're like, look, this isn't my area of specialty. I know at least one programmer that I'm 99% sure he specialized to get away from all the stuff he didn't like. He found something he liked that tended to require specialists, and he specialized in it. Now he didn't have to do all this other code that he didn't like.
I think it's just you have to separate, and this is what Tim is meaning, by the way, is you have to be able to separate when ignorance is legitimate and ignorance is being used as an excuse. And if you have a worker like that who is using ignorance as an excuse not to do something, they're not a good teammate, and they're not somebody that you should have around. That isn't vulnerability at that point. That isn't having a bad day. It's not like some junior who's like, me tasking a junior game designer with, hey, I need you to create the balance spreadsheet that we're going to use and make sure to add export scripts so that we can import this directly into Unreal afterwards. And if they say, oh, I don't know how to do it, 99.9% of the time it's because they literally do not know how to do it. And so that's more of like, okay, I will teach you. I'll show you how to make it. Or sit down with me and I'm going to show you how to make one of these export scripts or something. There's a difference between legitimate ignorance and willful ignorance. And if you have somebody being willfully ignorant, they're not going to be a good teammate. And they really need to be disciplined or fired, which I guess is discipline. People really need to learn the ability to walk away. It's crippling what people will lose fighting a losing battle. There's a lot of losing battles in game dev.
Trust me, I don't like doing UI programming, but I did it in almost all my games, frequently because the other programmers on the team were like, I don't want to do that, or I'm not very good at it. But I've seen managers do this too. I worked with at least one manager who was really picky about how I was running the project. And he kept saying, you need to do this. I can't believe you don't have this. You don't have a document for this. You haven't gotten this set up. Well, while I was working on a project, he got his own project assigned to him. So he went from being like the executive in charge of all these different projects, having his own project. And didn't go well for him. All the advice, all the things that he said we had to do, he didn't do. And then that project failed. And it made me go, he didn't follow his own advice. And then I realized there's a big difference between telling people what to do and then doing it yourself. Yeah. And that's part of the passivity that I talk about. There are people that know what they're supposed to be doing, and they still don't do it. Which brings me to this channel.
It's almost like people who know that they should discard a prototype project and, restart from scratch to make a full game and don't do that. It's almost like that, right? Talking about him working on WildStar, yeah. Man, I miss WildStar. What the priest tell you now what he does? No, we're all guilty of this. It's both like a mix of hypocrisy, but also a mix of, oh, it would be super easy to just add multiplayer. Like, what are you doing? Just add multiplayer. And then, that you give that person, okay, here's our project. Do you think it's so easy to add multiplayer? Do it. Do it. And of course, they're not going to know how to do it. So, I don't know. Those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, right?
A lot of people in comments ask me to do things like teach code, walk through
Teaching's hard.
design,
Teaching is very different than
going
doing.
through a design in detail. There are literally hundreds of channels that do that,
Yeah.
especially the code one. I don't need to be doing this. There's not only a lot of things that can teach, a lot of channels that can teach you how to code. You can also learn how to code yourself. Also, there are so many free engines out there, and I've mentioned this: free engines with free art and free code samples. And sometimes you can even, for a very small amount of money, buy an entire foundation for whatever type of game you're making. You want to make a platformer?
Does he know? Wait. Does he know about that Abyss game?
There are games out there.
Is
There's
this
code out
live,
there
Tim?
that's foundational for making a platformer. Still people don't do it, and that's what I'm talking about. It's complete passivity.
Well, I will say, okay, going back to that, yes, you can buy like a platformer kit or a survival RPG kit if you really want to, and you can make a game out of it. But as we've talked about before, making a game is different than marketing a game and making a marketable game. If anybody can buy a survival RPG template for $300 and make a survival RPG, then the value of a survival RPG is basically worthless. It's pennies because anybody can do it. So then the game isn't marketable. It might even be fun, but if there's 1,000 of these fun games that are all the same thing, people are only going to choose one or two of them to try, and the rest of them are going to fall by the wayside, right? So, as we've talked about before, making a game marketable is different than making a game. And some people who are good at making games cannot make them marketable. Some people are good at marketing games, but aren't good at making them.
People don't do it. And that's what I'm talking about. It's complete passivity. They say they want to make games, but they don't make games. What they make are excuses. I have a whole video on that, about how people just like to make excuses.
A lot of developers.
Number one question on this channel used to be how to get a job. So I made a video on how I got a job and what would help you get a job. And even though that was dated because I got my job in 1981, making a demo has never, ever failed to be a good thing to do if you're looking for a job.
Sure.
And I talk about that, and still people don't do it. So all of this I'm talking about goes right back to the heart of that. If you're being passive, that is on you. Whether you're doing it at home, at school, at work, in your life, there's so much that you can do. There's so much you're capable of doing. But to do a lot, you've got to first do a little. And you've got to get started. Even if this means doing something on your own, making a little game on your own, making a little demo on your own, picking up Unity or Unreal and learning how to do things in it. This is on you.
True.
And no one else is going to handhold you through this. If you need someone to explain the basics at a very, interactional level, then you need to go to school. Then you're one of those people who need school versus being self-taught. I have a video on that. But you need to stop the passivity. If you want to do something, do it. If you're not, it's okay to be passive, but stop complaining about the results of that, your own passivity, to other people. So, wanted to say that because as I'm stepping away from the industry, I want people to step in, and we're going to need some people who are passionate, and we can also use a lot of people who are passive, as long as that passivity doesn't become other people's problems.
Yeah, it's the ideal that everybody is passionate. I think you can build a team much like Tim did with the first Fallout that is filled with passionate people that can align themselves with a vision. But it is hard and it is rare, and it does require good connections, money, being able to build up a team like that. And I've worked with teams that have done better jobs than others that I think at finding those passionate people and rewarding them and giving them the space to be creative. But it's not a guaranteed, I'll tell you that. And I've worked with companies that just hired whoever they could find because they didn't have a lot of money and they didn't have a lot of people applying, and it was like, well, okay, you're acceptable. You'll accept the money that we give you even though it's a pittance. Join the team. And what that kind of ends up being is just somebody randomly making a soup and adding in ingredients that they think might be good together, and then they end up with a soup that's pretty shit at the end of it because half the ingredients are good for one type of soup, half the ingredients are good for another type of soup. but they probably shouldn't be combined, right? You probably shouldn't add tomatoes to a potato soup. And you probably shouldn't add potatoes to a tomato soup. It'll be interesting. I don't know if it'll be successful. But yeah, that was a good video. Passivity, great topic to talk about. Guys, go give Tim a like and subscribe. And thank you for watching that one if you're watching on YouTube. Catch you later, YouTube.